In the electric air of Madison Square Garden, two legends stood beneath the lights. One, a showman whose speed once seemed to defy physics. The other, a warrior whose will had never known defeat. The crowd swelled with anticipation as the familiar voice of Michael Buffer thundered through the arena. Former light heavyweight and heavyweight champion of the world, Roy Jones Jr. The music hit, and Jones, draped in confidence and nostalgia, made his slow, deliberate walk toward destiny. Every flash of the camera painted his face, not of fear, but of defiance, the soul of a man chasing back the years. Then came the pride of Wales, Joe Calzaghe, the undefeated WBO and ring light heavyweight champion, calm, almost smiling, his steps lighter, his eyes sharper. The British flags waved among the sea of American fans. This wasn't just a fight, it was a meeting of eras. Jones, the artist of the 1990s, against Calzaghe. Both men had faced legends, both had conquered champions, but tonight one legacy would outshine the other. The referee called them to center ring. Protect yourself at all times, obey my commands, touch 'em up. The bell rang, and history began to breathe. Round one began with the tension of two grandmasters studying each other's movements. Jones, still slick with flashes of the old rhythm, leaned back, coiled, then released a sharp right hand. It landed flush. Calzaghe stumbled, then went down. The crowd erupted. Roy Jones Jr. had just dropped the undefeated champion in the opening round. Calzaghe rose, his pride wounded but his composure intact. The flashbacks were instant. Just like the Hopkins fight, Calzaghe had been caught early. Jones strutted across the ring, soaking in the noise, the flashes of brilliance returning for a moment that felt timeless. But Calzaghe, breathing steady, began to smile through the blood trickling from his nose. The fire in his eyes told another story, the story of a fighter who refuses to break. The Welshman began to press forward, snapping combinations, awkward, relentless, forcing Roy backward. Jones tried to time him with single counters, the old reflexes still alive but dimmed by years. Calzaghe found his rhythm, volume, angles, unpredictability, all in motion. The bell sounded to end a dramatic first round, one that belonged to Jones, but hinted at the storm to come. By the middle rounds, the fight had transformed. Calzaghe, as he always did, adjusted like a machine, learning its opponent. His punches came in flurries, dozens at a time, not all powerful, but constant, suffocating, draining the pride out of the once invincible Jones. The rhythm of the fight began to belong to the Welshman. Each round, he pressed forward, firing shots from the hip, switching stance, showboating with his hands low, daring Roy to throw. The American legend tried to find his spots, landing crisp right hands between the storm, but his success was fleeting. The crowd could sense the shift. Jones, the predator of old, now circling as the hunted. Still, his pride wouldn't let him fade. Every time Calzaghe showboated, Roy answered with defiance, sneaking in a jab, a hook, a reminder that genius never truly dies. Yet Calzaghe's tempo was merciless, his confidence blooming with every exchange. The ring began to echo with the rhythmic chant of Joe, Joe, Joe as the undefeated champion dug into the midsection. Roy, though older, fought with bursts of brilliance, landing single right hands that drew gasps from the crowd, punches that reminded everyone of the man who once toyed with greatness. But Joe was relentless. He stepped in, pivoted, and poured combinations like rain, uppercuts, hooks, body shots, not with malice, but with authority. The sound of leather echoed as Jones backed to the ropes, covering up, nodding as if to say, "I'm still here." It was heart against time, youth against memory. Calzaghe's volume was washing over Roy like a tide that couldn't be turned. Yet inside, Roy fought the invisible war, against age, against the echo of his own greatness. The fans could see it, flashes of brilliance buried under the weight of years. Still, Jones refused to quit. He kept countering, slipping, trying to lure Joe into mistakes, but Calzaghe's IQ was razor sharp. By round 6, the narrative was written in sweat. The underdog moment had passed, and now the reigning champion was taking control of the story. As the 7th and 8th rounds unfolded, Calzaghe's dominance deepened. He was now showboating in front of Roy Jones Jr., a stunning reversal of roles. With his hands down, chin up, Joe dodged punches with head movement that mocked danger. The crowd gasped as he leaned inches from Roy's counters, grinning, talking, playing the mental game that Jones himself had once mastered. It wasn't disrespect, it was symbolic. The torch was being passed, not willingly, but undeniably. Roy tried to rally, unleashing bursts of speed, but his punches lacked the old sting. Calzaghe's combinations answered in flurries, painting the fight with color, rhythm, and confidence. Roy's left eye began to swell. A cut opened above it, blood tracing down his cheek. Still, the legend pressed on, his pride keeping him upright, his name keeping him dangerous. The fight had turned into a masterclass in endurance and adaptation. Calzaghe's volume and will against Jones's legacy and spirit. The crowd, once roaring for knockdowns, now stood in awe of the resilience inside the ring. Each exchange became poetry in motion, a clash between what was and what is. By the championship rounds, the war was as psychological as physical. Calzaghe, sensing the finish, didn't chase the knockout. He wanted dominance, total control. He worked behind the jab, doubled the left, then unloaded in flurries that snapped Roy's head back. The blood from Jones's cut had worsened, streaking down his face like a warrior painted in battle. Yet he never broke. Between rounds, Calzaghe, meanwhile, kept pressing forward, relentless and clinical, each punch thrown with rhythm more than rage. The fans understood they were witnessing the end of one era and the confirmation of another. Roy, now nearly 40, was fighting not just Calzaghe but the inevitable, time itself. But his defiance, his refusal to fold, was as inspiring as his dominance once was. The bell for round 10 sounded over a sea of respect. Both men standing, both refusing to yield. Each exchange was slower now, heavier but filled with meaning. As the final rounds approached, the tone in the arena shifted from chaos to reverence. The chants for Joe continued, but so did the applause for Roy, for the courage, for the fight, for the reminder that legends never die quietly. Calzaghe was in complete command, landing combinations at will, mixing body and head shots like a maestro conducting his final symphony. Roy, tired and bloodied, still found room for one last right hand, a moment of vintage brilliance that earned the crowd's roar. But Joe's engine was endless. He simply wouldn't stop. He danced around the ring, pumping combinations from every angle, his confidence untouchable, his performance poetic. Roy's eyes, swollen and red, never looked away. He stood his ground till the end, trading punches, showing that even in defeat, he was no ordinary man. The sound of the final bell carried a strange beauty, not triumph and tragedy, but respect and farewell. The two embraced, warriors who had given everything to the sport, now sharing the silence that only fighters understand. When the judges' scores were read, there was no surprise. Unanimous decision for Joe Calzaghe. The undefeated champion from Wales had conquered another legend, cementing his legacy as one of the finest of his generation. Yet in that moment, the applause was shared. Roy Jones Jr., though beaten, walked out of the ring with his pride intact, his name forever etched in history. The crowd stood, not for victory, but for memory, because what they had seen was not a humiliation, but a passing of greatness. Calzaghe bowed his head, knowing he had faced one of the best to ever lace gloves. Roy smiled faintly, acknowledging the truth of time. Under the bright lights, both men stood as champions of different eras, united by one language, boxing. The music swelled, the crowd roared one last time, and as the camera panned over the ring, It captured the essence of what the sport truly is, not about winning or losing, but about the heart to fight, even when the world says your time has passed.